She screamed at me, her face red and veins straining in her neck. "This land is mine." It was so absurd I almost laughed, but my hands were shaking too hard to make it funny. I had barely moved into my ranch a week earlier, still unpacking tools, still hanging my saddle rack when strangers in reflective vests began circling my fence line like vultures, acting as if I was already guilty of some crime no one had even named yet. I thought it was just a weird misunderstanding. My porch turned into their stage, my driveway into their courtroom, and apparently I was the villain of their play. They whispered about community rules, scribbled fake notes like actors rehearsing while my new neighbors peeked from their windows like it was Saturday night theater. Then their president, Malene Pierce, strutted up my drive in a blazer that didn't belong in the dust and sun of ranch country. She slapped a folder down on my fence like a gavel and declared, "That barn of yours and that fence, it's blocking our shared mountain view. You'll have to lower it." I remember setting down my hammer, pouring lemonade into a glass just to keep my hands steady. "Ma'am, my property isn't in your HOA." She didn't blink. She simply pointed at my barn again, waving some home-printed view corridor guidelines that looked like they'd been run off at Kinko's. Rebecca, the neighbor across the way, saw it all unfold, shook her head like she'd seen this act before, and walked back into her garden. That was my first warning sign. That night, I spread my deed across my kitchen table. Lamplight on paper legal descriptions, clear as day, my land was never part of their HOA plat. They had zero jurisdiction. And yet, the next morning I found fresh soil ripped open near my fence, a drainage ditch dug straight from their side onto mine without permission. My background as a water inspector kicked in. I knew what unauthorized drainage looked like. I pulled out my phone, filmed the date, the disturbed earth, the water trickling across. Evidence number 1. I thought documenting would calm me down, but the opposite happened. Malene returned, saw me with my notebook and camera, and her face flushed red. She shouted across the fence for everyone to hear, "This land is mine. You're interfering with community amenity." Then she called her little patrol truck forward, headlights blazing into my porch like a police raid. I laughed, but inside I was rattled. How far would she go? The answer came quick. The following days, mulch from the HOA was dumped deliberately along my property edge to redirect stormwater. Flyers appeared on my land, glossy and official-looking, with photos of my barn circled in red, claiming I was obstructing community sightlines. A fresh survey stake showed up near my boundary marker, still wearing a store sticker. Trespassing, tampering, lies. Tampering. Rebecca came over, turning the stake in her hands. "This looks new, Derek. Someone's busy on your property." Then she bent over the ditch, sniffed at the faint green stain left in the soil, and grimaced. "They're dye testing your drainage. Without consent." That made my blood boil. My credibility wasn't just dented, it was under siege. I doubled down. I ran controlled water tests with a hose documenting how the green dye flowed from their trail straight into my pit. Neighbors gathered around as the color appeared glowing like a neon marker line. Audible gasps. "We had no idea," one whispered. Proof right there in the dirt. And that's when the harassment turned darker. Late-night calls, heavy breathing, then a whisper, "Stop tracing." Click. I won't lie, I almost broke. Sitting alone at my table, staring at my growing stack of photos, I wondered if I was the problem. Maybe I was being stubborn. Maybe I should just lower the barn, pull the fence, and live quietly. For a minute, I hated myself for caring so much about proof and principle. But then came the call that flipped everything. Stephen from County Range Management had heard rumors of volunteer fire safety crews storming private land. "That's illegal impersonation if they're not certified," he said. His voice was steady official, and I clung to it like a lifeline. The very next afternoon, 5 people in brand-new yellow vests marched onto my ranch behind Malene. They tried to hand me a fake citation printed on copy paper. "You'll clear 30 feet of brush immediately," one barked. And then, like an angel with a badge, Stephen pulled up in his county truck, flashed his credentials, and shut them down cold. "Impersonating fire officials is a misdemeanor," he announced. The fake volunteers shuffled nervously, peeling off their vests. Stephen walked the property with me, pointing to a freshly cut tree stump, sap still wet. Boundary tampering, he noted. He tagged the mulch pile they'd dumped bright red fire hazard illegal dumping. He told Malene she had 48 hours to remove it or face fines. Watching her deflate even briefly was the first time I felt the ground tilt back toward truth. But she wasn't finished. She circulated a petition printed like something from City Hall, claiming my barn was a hazard to mental health and community spirit. 20 residents signed. People knocked on my door asking if I was okay, as if defending my own deed meant I'd lost my mind. It was humiliating. So I invited them in. I laid my title deed and survey maps across my kitchen table. Take a look, I told them. My land was never part of your HOA. Some stared at the paperwork like they were seeing sunlight after weeks underground. One woman muttered, "Nobody told us this." The next porch meeting was different. Neighbors, one HOA rep, even a flood control tech, all watching as I poured dyed water into the trench. Cameras, clicked phones filmed, and there was no denying it, the HOA had carved an illegal channel across my property. Deputy Luke Blake arrived notebook in hand, and the weight of his presence turned neighbor drama into a legal record. And then the financial rot surfaced. Rebecca, with her forensic eye, traced contracts and found the HOA funneling work to Greenview, LLC, a landscaping company registered to Malene's own sister. Identical jobs split into tiny invoices to dodge bidding rules. It was textbook fraud. She spread the documents across my kitchen table, dates and dollar amounts lined up like smoking guns. At the emergency meeting, when this evidence hit the projector screen, you could feel the room shift. A board member asked Malene point-blank why Greenview shared her home address. She stammered. The county soon subpoenaed bank records tying HOA funds straight into her family accounts. Procurement fraud. Conspiracy. Theft. The final blow came when surveyors arrived with GPS gear. They dug through layers of mulch and uncovered the original granite boundary marker, weathered and solid, older than the subdivision itself. I ran my hand across its cold surface, vindicated at last. Stephen confirmed it publicly. This property was never under HOA jurisdiction. Inside the hall, residents erupted, some storming out, others shouting for her resignation. A man ripped his HOA badge in half on camera. And Malene. She stood there, red-eyed, clutching a useless petition that carried no legal weight against the county's stop-work order. By the end, misdemeanor charges for harassment and trespassing stacked against her. Felony fraud charges loomed for the contract schemes. Daily fines piled up until restoration was complete. The board voted unanimously to suspend her, and I stood at my boundary line at sunset, watching county crews restore the drainage, the granite marker glowing in gold light, knowing the fight was finally over. Property lines can be moved by liars, but the truth never needed their permission.